The Prime Minister is in Ukraine, while his possible replacements get ready for debate week. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
With Ukraine marking 3 years since the illegal Russian invasion of that country, Prime Minister Trudeau joined other world leaders at a summit in Kyiv. While there, Mr. Trudeau announced his government would send $5 billion worth of aid to Ukraine, with some of the funds coming from seized Russian assets. Mr. Trudeau also had praise for Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky.
And above all, thank you, Volodymyr, for hosting today's summit and for your courageous leadership as the duly elected democratic leader of this great nation. Since the start of Russia's full-scale illegal war of aggression 3 years ago, you've shown remarkable personal bravery, resilience, and resolve, a defiant spirit mirrored by the unbreakable Ukrainian people. You continue to inspire me and tens of millions of my fellow citizens back home in Canada. But let us be frank. You and the Ukrainian people should never have had to endure even a single day of this unjustified, brutal war, let alone 1,096 of them, or more accurately, over 4,000 of them since Russia illegally seized Crimea back in 2014.
Prime Minister Trudeau's praise of President Zelensky stands in sharp contrast to the remarks made recently by U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump has blamed Ukraine for the war, called President Zelensky a dictator, and vowed the United States would be compensated with things like rare earth minerals for the aid it has given to Ukraine.
So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But we feel so stupid. Here's Europe. And you know, it affects Europe. It doesn't really affect us, except we don't like to see two things. Number one, how Biden got us into this thing in the first place. Terrible. But why is it that he didn't ask for equalization? Europe should put up more money than us. But even if you said the same thing, how come we went so far out front? And he didn't know that Europe gets his money back. They did it in the form of a loan. We don't get our money back. We get nothing. So we're getting our money back.
At this summit in Kyiv today, Trudeau shared a totally different view, pinning the blame for the war on Russia's imperialist ambitions.
This is not a conflict Ukraine wanted, provoked, or asked for in any way. This is a war started for one reason and one reason only: Russia's desire to erase Ukrainian history and expand their empire. Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order, an order established in response to the most destructive war in our collective history, a war etched in the memory of the citizens of all of our respective nations for the past 80 years.
While Mr. Trudeau is in Ukraine, here in Canada, his potential replacements are getting ready for back-to-back debates. The Liberal Party will hold a leadership debate in French tonight and another in English tomorrow night. Barry McLaughlin, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, has helped many federal politicians prepare for debates. He told us this is Mark Carney's debate to lose and that the frontrunner will have a target on his back.
I think he has to look unflappable. They will be taking shots at him. I think Chrystia Freeland, even though they're close and so on, has to differentiate herself. I think, Frank Baylis has already indicated, he's critical of the government's response. He feels it should have been stronger with regard to the tariff threats, et cetera, et cetera. So there are opportunities to differentiate. There won't be a forthright attack. Each of them want to show that they could take on Pierre Poilievre face-to-face and ultimately Donald Trump face-to-face. They got to show that in their tone, in their message, in their positioning. Yes, they do have to differentiate. It's always a double-edged sword in debate. Here's the edge of the sword, which I would do, and here's the edge that I'm really saying the other guy isn't really doing that or hasn't demonstrated that he wants to do that. So you got to differentiate wherever you can without sounding chirpy and negative. You've got to show you're different, you're a leader, and you can take Canada where we need to be. That's what each of them have to do. And Carney just has to not fumble the ball.
Tonight's French language debate begins at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. There will be one moderator, Pierre Jobin, a well-known former news anchor in Quebec. The topics will be Canada's place in the world, growing a strong economy, supporting Canadians, and climate action. One leadership hopeful will not be there, however. Former Liberal MP Ruby Dalla has been disqualified from the race. Liberal Party's national director said the Dalla campaign made 10 violations of the rules, some involving campaign expenses. Dalla found out she was disqualified when she was on a political TV show on CBC. She has since claimed that she was kicked out by the Liberal Party's establishment that, quote, couldn't handle the fact I was the only obstacle to Mark Carney's coronation. She then released a video on social media claiming the fix was in.
And I said, regardless of what you think of me, just think about the other cultural communities in our country and women and young people. You're going to send the wrong message. They only want to talk about diversity. They only want to talk about representation of women. But when it comes down to it, they want to silence you and they want to disqualify you. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney.
So a debate tonight in French and another tomorrow night in English. And the winner of the Liberal leadership race will be announced 2 weeks from yesterday, March 9th.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
It's not out of the question Canadian troops could be deployed to Ukraine as part of a possible peace deal, according to Mr. Trudeau today. Made that remark in Kyiv, where he is marking the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Cassian Saltykevich is a member of the executive board at the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress and joins us now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you again. How would you describe the mood for Ukrainians and Ukrainian Canadians these days?
I think it's fairly difficult for, especially in the last couple of weeks, as we've seen it change south of our border. But Ukrainians here are, we're 3 years in. Many cities, over 55 cities, have had rallies across Canada, both yesterday and today, to commemorate the third anniversary of the full-scale invasion. And, we're not ready to give up by any stretch of the imagination. Ukrainians have proven they're resilient. Putin said that he's going to capture Kyiv in 3 days, and here we are 3 years later. And Kyiv still stands, and Ukraine still stands in every possible kind of sense.
And what would you say has been the reaction to what President Trump has said recently about this war?
Well, it's not something, it's not our first Trump presidency. We saw this several years ago. I think it's just very difficult to deal with, and trying to kind of reconcile with changes every single day. We see him tweeting things and posting things online every single day that is a different thought, and trying to provoke again the news cycle in any way he can. So it's very difficult to, the words are not easy in terms of what he says, trying to coerce Ukraine into getting hundreds of millions of dollars sort of mineral rights, or billions rather. And it's just difficult because it's a very difficult situation trying to understand what actually is the outcome. But we've seen what a true president looks like in President Zelensky, saying he's willing to give up and ready to leave the presidency tomorrow if it means NATO membership for Ukraine. So that's kind of heartening to see what Zelensky really is made out of.
Okay. What did you think of what Mr. Trudeau announced today? Light armored vehicles, $5 billion all told in aid, suggesting it's not out of the question that Canadian troops could be deployed to that country as part of a peace deal. What do you think about what Mr. Trudeau said today?
Well, I think it's all, we welcome the announcement. It's all very important. Every little bit helps. We know that Canada is working with Ukraine and working with its allies to continue to support the people of Ukraine in any way it can. Regarding having troops on the ground, I think it would be not only Canada to be part of a wider coalition providing support to Ukraine after some sort of agreement is reached. So I think it's the right thing to say and be part of. Again, this is a team effort. This isn't one country. So it's not only Canada supporting Ukraine. It's a multilateral effort across all allies and partners in Europe and across the world supporting Ukraine. So we're happy to hear that Canada is stepping up to be a part of that, and we'll have to see how the next kind of few months develop.
What would you say to Canadians who would say $5 billion? That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that could do good in this country. And maybe we shouldn't be sending that kind of money to Ukraine. That money would be better spent in Canada. What would you say to those Canadians who would think that?
Absolutely. Well, it depends on what kind of direct, what funding is given, because there's lots of funding that's given to Ukraine that's not direct military funding or other kind of supports. It's a lot of money that goes to Ukraine as economic support that is in the form of loans. So Canada, the IMF, and other bodies have provided Ukraine with lots of loans to help their economy be stable and to actually grow. Ukraine's economy has grown in the last 2 years. So it's not necessarily that we're just giving, we're not giving any kind of money carte blanche. And a lot of money also that's being announced when it's going to support things like vehicles that are built in Canada or other things that are made in Canada. While, yes, the end product is going to Ukraine, it's actually direct money that goes to help our economy and our people here in Canada. So it's those are kind of the economic factors. But the other part, of course, is we have Canada as part of our NATO allies. We have two biggest adversaries in the world, one of which is Russia. And through no loss of Canadian soldiers and no Canadian lives, we are, Canada has supported the effort to weaken Russia, which is our second biggest enemy, again, at just an economic cost, a minor economic cost to Canada, and no personnel lost for Canadians.
Okay. How would you say the Ukrainian refugees who came to Canada, how are they doing, in your opinion?
Well, there's been a huge support since day one. Canadians have provided an immense support, opened their doors, have helped those people who have arrived here in many ways, have opened up job offers and have helped them, and many have arrived and settled very well. With every passing month, they're doing very well. They're being able to support themselves very easily, and overall just having a better time here integrating into Canadian life. So now it's kind of moved on to how do we continue to help them if they want to stay here and obtain permanent residency. Some of them don't want to do that. Some have returned home just because Canadian life is not the same as life in Ukraine or in Europe. So it's gone quite well overall. There always are difficult parts, but it's because of the resiliency of Canadian people and opened their doors and supported so many organizations and individual Ukrainians who arrived here in Canada.
Okay. President Trump has called President Zelensky a dictator who would lose an election if an election was held. He's supported by something like 4% of the population. What would you say is the view among Ukrainians about their president?
Well, just a few days after Trump made that remark, there was a poll that came out that 63% of Ukrainians, favorably support President Zelensky. So while the numbers are completely false, there's still a majority of Ukrainians who strongly support Zelensky, and even much higher percentage of Ukrainians support the ongoing war effort and the resilience in fighting for independence and fighting for Ukraine. So, and President Zelensky has said, it's their constitution, unlike the Constitution of the United States, says that they can't have an election in wartime. So it's a very difficult thing, and it would be very difficult to have an election. But Zelensky has said himself, he's willing to step down in exchange for NATO membership. He's ready to do a lot of things as a leader, and he's ready to give up his post to secure the future and security of his country.
Thank you so much for your time today, Cassian Soltykevich. Good to hear from you. Yeah, executive board member of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Well, David, welcome back for another week of Now You Know.
Oh, and it's so good to be here.
Oh, yeah. You sound thrilled. If you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's S-E-E-K-R, spelled S-E-E-K-R. Has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker spelled Seekr. And now you know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And as well, you can listen to the Big Story podcast on the Seeker app. And David is working on a big story for the Big Story podcast. What is it, Dave?
So talking about drug policy and the overdose crisis in Canada, Rob, I think by now everybody's probably heard the term safe supply, so-called safe supply, safer supply, prescription opioids that are provided by the government to people who are addicted to street drugs. The idea being you give them a clean pharmaceutical supply and they will be at a lower risk of overdosing from the much more toxic illicit drug supply. Problem with that is there has been a lot of evidence emerging over the past number of years that a lot of these pills that the government is prescribing to people who use drugs are not being taken by them as directed. They're being resold on the black market, something that they call diversion of safe supply drugs. Last week, the government of BC made a huge change to its safe supply program. They are now moving to what is called a supervised safe supply model. That means that the people who are prescribed these drugs go to the pharmacy and have to take their dose, whatever the drug or whatever the method of administration is. They have to take the dose under supervision of a pharmacist or another healthcare provider. They cannot simply take their prescription and leave the pharmacy, which has been the case so far. So they're doing that to try and crack down on the issue of diversion. Some advocates say it will make it far too cumbersome for these people to access their medication. They'll simply go back to street drugs. Other critics say what they had been doing had gotten totally out of control, and the issue of diversion was so glaring that the government has had to reverse course. So on the Big Story tomorrow, I'll be speaking with Dr. Julian Summers, who's been a guest on this show before, a fierce critic of the BC government's approach. He has a lot of thoughts on this. There are calls for a public inquiry, Rob, into this entire safe supply experiment in BC. That's how off track it's gotten. That's how controversial it is. So that's coming up on the Big Story podcast tomorrow.
Okay. I look forward to hearing that. Now, coming up right after the news at the bottom of the hour, it will be our Newsday panel, special focus on the debates for the Liberal leadership hopefuls. The French language debate tonight and the English language debate goes tomorrow. And there are 4 candidates still vying to be the leader of the Liberal Party. So we'll talk about that when we come back.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio, the Newsday panel.
Well, it's time for our Newsday panel. Josie Sabatino is with us from Summa Strategies. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rob?
I'm good. You're in British Columbia?
No, I'm in Ottawa.
Oh, you're in Ottawa. Okay. All right. Nick McRoberts is here from Hill and Knowlton. How are you, Nick?
I'm good, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Great to hear from you. Congratulations on the new gig, I must add. So let's get into things here. For the Liberals, we have a French language debate tonight, an English language debate tomorrow for the leadership hopefuls. Let's talk about some of the strategies for the leading contenders. Everybody would agree that Mark Carney is considered to be the front runner. So, Nick, you're the former Liberal staffer. What do you think the strategy is for Mark Carney going into these debates?
Yeah, I think he's going to be very aware of the push to date to tie him into the Liberal establishment and have him seen as this Liberal insider and this puller of strings, if you will. So I think he's coming into it with a clear plan to separate himself from the government that's been in place since 2015, but also make it clear that he is aware of the challenges and that he's experienced and that he has a clear vision of what to do now that is separate and better than what we've had to date. He'll be keenly aware that the Conservatives are going to look at ways to, attack him after this debate on things that he said that maybe ties him too closely to the government. And so, he's going to come out with his vision and his plan and a new direction. Similar to what many other candidates will do, but for him, I think that's the most important aspect.
Okay. What do you think about Mark Carney's strategy going into these debates? Josie, what do you think his strategy needs to be?
Well, I think first and foremost, he needs to be consistent in what he is saying, both in French and in English. And I think we saw kind of a glimpse of these types of fumbles last week when he was talking about major projects. And again, he had that language flood thing in English, a different thing in French to appeal to the voters there. So I think, he has to be consistent in the message. He really hasn't put a lot of policy on the table either. So it will be interesting to see if he's able to expand on his vision. And I think he needs to fight back against, where the Conservatives has successfully boxed him in. And I'm thinking about on carbon taxes and being an outsider versus an insider. All of these narratives, really, he has to cleanly attack. And it will be really interesting to see, whether he is able to come across as likable and appealable, just given how close we are to the next election.
I'll just be curious tonight if he can follow the proceedings. Can he keep up? Will he understand what's being asked and what the debate actually is? I mean, with the exception of Frank Baylis, who was a Liberal MP from Quebec, none of these people are Quebecers, but Freeland's French is pretty good. Karina Gould is probably has the best French of, say, Gould, Freeland, and Carney. And I would, Mark Carney speaks French. I say he speaks public service French, but he's far from being a fluent in the language. I wonder if he might struggle tonight. What do you think, Nick? Might be a struggle for him.
I agree, and I think the other thing that is important to note is he's going up against three, French speakers who have experience debating in French in the House of Commons. Right. That's one thing that he has not done in his career is stood in the House and articulated points and gone against the opposition in both official languages. So, yeah, that's going to be a big challenge for him, I think, in English or French, right? He's a central banker. This is not someone who's acutely aware of the intricacies of political debates. The setting is not one that lends itself to Mr. Carney. So I think there's some work there to be done, and might be where we see some of the other candidates, kind of pull ahead in the short term.
Okay. To me, the Baylis candidacy is kind of just a billionaire vanity project to me. I think Karina Gould's candidacy is interesting. It may be more about raising profile for a leadership run, that may be more serious down the road. To me, it's Chrystia Freeland has a lot on the line tonight. This, the tonight and tomorrow may be her last two chances to kind of slow down this freight train that is the Carney campaign. So what's on the line for Freeland tonight as you see it, Josie?
Well, I think she, and take this with a grain of salt, this is coming from a conservative looking into the Liberal leadership race. Yeah. This is Mark Carney's to lose. There is very little I think Freeland can do to influence the outcome of this leadership race at this point. But, she is looking at this as a chance to build for a future successive leadership bid. Like, now is the time to put her chops on the block, and she's rolled out quite a bit of substantive policy. But in terms of, actually getting the votes needed, I don't think she is in a position to pull this off. And it feels a lot like it did when Pierre Poilievre was running for the Conservative Party in terms of, there is a successor who has gained momentum in this race. And it seems like a conclusive outcome I think we should expect. Okay.
What's on the line for Freeland in these debates? Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, it's her political future, right? She has to get up there with a very tricky job, which is to separate herself from decisions that she was intimately a part of and explain to Liberals and Canadians that are watching her how she pushed back against those decisions. And if she didn't agree with them and they went forward, she has to own up to those shortcomings. That when you're trying to defend yourself against 3 other detractors and say that you're the best out of all of the 4 is a task that, it strikes chords with me with what Joe Biden had to do or what Kamala Harris had to do in terms of, distancing themselves from records, but owning it up at the same time. It's
Okay.
so hard. And she's got a lot riding on this.
Okay, we'll be right back. Talk a little bit more about the debates, the Liberal leadership race, possible election timing, if we have time as well. There will be an election decided this week, the Ontario provincial election. We'll ask our panelists about that. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies and Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton. So what sort of debate are you expecting tonight, Josie? Do you think this is going to be like a friendly exchange of ideas? Or like a rock 'em, sock 'em, drag 'em out like the first 9 seconds of last Saturday night's hockey game?
Maybe somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle,
I have yet to see a
okay.
debate that hasn't ended up in some sort of verbal brawl, and I expect, these, given how each of these candidates is coming into the race, I think that they really need to define themselves and fight for their time on stage tonight. So, I don't expect it to be friendly after that handshake, and we'll see how it ends up shaking out.
Nick, what kind of debate are you expecting?
Yeah, I'm not, expecting any zingers per se. I think they are going to try to poke some holes politely in each other, but they're all going to be keenly aware that this is going to be watched by more than Liberals, and there's a need here to defend as well a brand that's bigger than them. Right? They have to protect the party and make it clear while they're having a debate that the Liberal Party is still the best option going into an election. And so, the kind of undercutting and American style, maybe like personal humiliation aspects of debate as we've come to see, I don't think aren't going to come to bear this evening and tomorrow night.
Well, I mean, these debates can provide ammunition for their political opponents. We didn't get it done. And do you think it's easy to make priorities? Are a couple of examples that spring to mind. Liberal lines from debates that were used to great effect later in Conservative attack ads. So, Josie, what do you think the Conservative Party operatives will be watching for from these debates? Because they'll be watching.
Well, I think there's a couple points specifically around Mark Carney's, carbon border adjustment plan. That is a very difficult concept to explain in English, let alone in a language that is not native tongue. So I think, they're going to be watching for faux pas there and any inaccuracies, and then trying to lump that into the overall carbon tax message and making life more expensive for Canadians. And then I think the second piece to this is the questions around balancing the budget. Mark Carney has said that, he will do so in 3 years, but that in order to make that count, he will be splitting the budget between operation and capital costs. And again, I think this is something that the Conservatives are going to seize on and really try and attack, just given their own messages along plans to fix the budget.
Okay. Nick, I want to ask you about your reaction to how everything played out for Ruby Dalla in this leadership race now that she's been disqualified. She says she was done in by the elites who want a Carney coronation. What do you think?
So I think there's two lanes here. The first is that foreign interference in elections is important to monitor for. It's dangerous, and it's something that Canadians rightfully have a heightened sense of. The party specifically has a heightened sense of that, given the fact that this leadership contest will determine a prime minister. And so I think it's valid and fair that all candidates received, the level of scrutiny that they did. And if the party came to a logical conclusion about Ms. Dalla's, contributions and campaign, then, I'm no lawyer, and I haven't seen, the full scope of evidence that they've talked about. And so, I put my trust in that. That being said, the kind of PR angle of it and, her being on CBC News and, finding out live and kind of allowing her to create this rhetoric of being kicked out and, liberal elites out against her, I don't think served the party well.
Right.
And, I can understand from her perspective, every reason to be upset, but we need to step back and look at the larger issue of this and realize this is about more than one person.
What did you think about the way everything played out with Rui Dalla, Josie?
Well, I think the fact of the matter that she found out on live TV shows a serious lack of professionalism within, the Liberal Party and the operatives that shared this message to media before she herself found out. And I think that there's always this narrative that plays out in the court of public opinion. But the fact of the matter is when we're dealing with serious allegations like this, processes should be followed. And, I would expect the candidate to find out before, the media does.
Okay. We'll stop here. And when we come back, we'll talk about possible election timing. Lots of speculation about that. Is, if Mark Carney wins, will he call an election right away? Will he wait? And we know one election is going to be settled this week. That'll be the Ontario provincial election, with Doug Ford's PC party expected to win another majority government. But we'll ask our panelists about that when we come back on our Newsday panel here on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies and from Hill and Knowlton, Nick McRoberts. I apologize if I ask you this every week, but I feel I must ask you it until the election is actually called. Okay. Could we be in an election campaign 2 weeks from today? Like, what is the thinking right now on when the next election campaign could begin? Like March 9th, it's all going to be settled with the Liberals. Mark Carney's been dropping hints that he wants to call an early election. The NDP spending $500,000 with a new ad. That's a pretty big financial commitment from a party with not a lot of money. So it must think there's going to be an early election. What do you think, Josie?
I think we should expect it. I think if Mark Carney comes victorious in a week and a half, and the poll indicating that Canada-U.S. is a rising issue, I think he wants to go to the polls and take a page out of Doug Ford's book and really frame the ballot box question around that. Now, I also think it does not benefit him at all to go back once the House has been prorogued and be defeated by the NDP and the Conservatives. They do not want that as kind of the lasting impression that's on the minds of Canadians before, we're plunged into an election. So I think we should certainly expect this.
Yeah. I just think if you're Mark Carney, you want to avoid that view of you in the gallery and somebody speaking on your behalf, or you in the gallery while your government goes down to defeat, right? I think you want to avoid, honestly, I think you want to avoid that. And I think you want to set the terms yourself. But what do you think? I mean, March 10th, 2 weeks from today, could we be in an election campaign as soon as that, Nick? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both ways that he's going to go and do kind of double duty with the Governor General and be sworn in as Prime Minister and ask for the writ to drop. He's got a week buffer before Parliament sits, so I don't want to be sold on March 10th. He's got up until realistically the 24th to do it. But I agree. He's going to be on the debate stage tonight with two MPs who may very well, if the House sits, be the ones to motion to him in the gallery. So it's not an image that you want out there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the Ontario election is going to be settled this week on the 27th, which is Thursday. If it is another PC majority government for Doug Ford, why will that have been the case, do you think, Josie?
Canada-U.S. the singular answer
Canada,
to all of
US.
this.
Okay. All right.
I do think Doug Ford would have came out victorious regardless, but I think he is on his way to a potential majority government, which is a big feat after 3 terms. And it is solely because he was able to frame the ballot box correctly on this issue and really tap into the fears that I think Ontarians have at this juncture.
Look, that I'm the one who has command of this situation. I've been sending my people to Washington. I've been there with the premiers. He was there again last week as well. That he's framed the whole thing not around what usually a provincial election would be around, whether it's public education or the state of the healthcare system. The opposition has tried to frame it that way. But the situation with the United States is just kind of taken over. Is that how you see it, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think that the strategy that he's taken is smart because it means that when, voters in Ontario listen to, the leader of the NDP or the leader of the Liberals, they just kind of hear this yelling at clouds, right? They're not talking about what Doug's talking about and the rest of the country's focused on. As important as education and healthcare and all of these other things are, they're not talking about the front page issue. And Doug is doing that and clearly doing it well.
Yeah. Okay, we shall see what happens on Thursday night. I think it's going to be an early night myself. Thank you. Good to hear from both of you today. All the best.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Yep. Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies, from Hill and Knowlton, Nick McRoberts. Talk back. Coming up right after the news, we're going to talk federal politics today. Election politics with an election campaign maybe in as soon as 2 weeks. Have your say on that. When we come back on Talk Back right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. First one of the week. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, federal politics, election politics. Yeah, we want to jump right into things with a conversation about what could be happening in this country in just the next couple of weeks, because it is not out of the question that a federal election campaign could start as soon as 2 weeks from now. The winner of the Liberal leadership is going to be announced March 9th. That's 2 weeks from yesterday. There is a line of thinking that there's a very good chance that if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race, he is going to ask the Governor General to drop the writ, and there will be an election campaign in this country. We have all kinds of questions about that possibility. Just in case it happens, we want to get the conversation going today. First of all, I mean, what would you think if there was an election campaign underway in about 2 weeks from now in this country? Would you think that's a good idea or a bad idea to have an election campaign right about now? Given everything that's going on in the world, everything that's happening between Canada and the United States, do you think now is a good time for Canada to be having a federal election campaign? For example, would you say, no, it's not a good time to be having an election? Parliament should be sitting. And the next government should be governing, not campaigning. Or would you say, yes, there should be an election campaign, because whoever the next Liberal leader is, they're not going to have a mandate from the people of Canada. That person will have been selected only by supporters of the Liberal Party, and only the Liberal Party. So that person should absolutely seek a mandate from all the voters in Canada. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If there is an election campaign on the way, maybe in as soon as 2 weeks from now, what would be the top issues for you? What would be, say, big factors that would determine how you vote? For example, would it be who is best to deal with Donald Trump and the threat of tariffs from the Trump administration and all the talk of making Canada the 51st state? Is the big question for you who can best stand up to Trump? Or would it be something else? Like, who could best manage the economy? Who could lower the cost of living? Who could improve the state of health care in the country? Who could improve the immigration system? Or lower the cost of housing? Or best fight climate change? Or do something about immigration? What's a big issue for you? Something that's going to really determine how you vote in the next election. I'd love to know. 1-833-668-2577. We have lines available right now. What are your opinions of the choices that might be out there of some of these political leaders? For example, what is your opinion of Mark Carney? What would you think if Mark Carney was leading the Liberal Party in the next election? What do you, based on what you know about the guy and his policies, what do you think about the guy and his policies? Or what do you think about the other candidates in that Liberal leadership race? Mark Carney's the perceived front runner. But we have these debates coming up, one tonight in French and another in English tomorrow night. It's not a sure thing that Mark Carney is going to win. Maybe Chrystia Freeland wins the Liberal leadership race, or maybe Karina Gould, or maybe Frank Baylis. It'd be a long shot, but what do you think of some of these other people? And what is your opinion? He's been around for a long time now. You've seen and heard a lot from the man, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party. And let's face it, for the last year and a half, the polls have showed the Conservative Party with a very big lead over the Liberals, and now some of the polls are saying the race is tightened up. Some suggest the Liberals would be very competitive against the Conservative Party if Mark Carney was the leader of the Liberals. Some other polls have the Conservatives still on track to win a majority government, but not as big a majority government as before with like 200 plus seats. Some polls even give the Liberals a shot at winning another minority government. If the Conservatives don't win, think about that. This would go down as either one of the greatest comebacks in Canadian political history or one of the biggest squanderings of a lead in Canadian political history. But, give us your opinion. Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party leader, what do you think about him? What about the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh? What's your opinion of him? If the Liberals are making a comeback, the polls say a lot of the Liberal momentum would seem to be coming at the expense of the New Democrats. I think the NDP is pretty convinced it's going to be an election campaign soon because it's going to spend $500,000 on this new election ad that's out now. Shows Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, in a boxing ring because Jagmeet Singh is fighting for you. Listen to this.
I wasn't raised to be a politician. Never dreamed of becoming one. I worked for minimum wage to take care of my family when my dad was sick and made it out of law school to see the system only works for those at the top. So I got in the ring to take on the powerful few and fight for you. It's time for someone in your corner, especially when times are tough. I won't back down. I won't stop fighting for you. I'm ready.
Tomorrow, by the way, David, tomorrow, I'm only bringing this up because it has been a talking point for so long. Tomorrow is a big day on the calendar in politics.
Oh?
Tomorrow is the day that Jagmeet Singh qualifies for his pension.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, February 25th. Mr. Singh will have served 6 years as an MP, so he will qualify for the MP pension plan. Just so you know, because it might come up. But look, most of these polls suggest the NDP is running a distant third in this race. It's a choice between two parties to form the government, either the Conservatives or the Liberals. What would you think if the Conservatives won? What would you think if the Liberals won the next election, even a minority government? That'd make it 4 in a row. Going back to 2015, 4 wins in a row. So look, that's more than enough to get us started today. Share your thoughts. Join the discussion. We'd love for you to take part in our show today, and every day for that matter. The number to call, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention it to the call screener, or we will make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Federal politics is the topic of the day, and election politics is the theme as we ask questions like, what would you think if there is an election campaign in as soon as 2 weeks from now? Do you like that idea or not? And what would be a big issue for you in the upcoming election campaign? Trump, or something else? Cost of living, healthcare, housing, immigration, some other issue. Love to hear from you today at 1-833-668-2577. Dallas up first today in Cambridge, Ontario. Hello, Dallas.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
I'm good. Dallas, what would you think if there was an election campaign in, say, 2 weeks?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you have to look at it. If Mr. Carney wins the race to the poll, well, he hasn't got a seat, has he?
No, he doesn't. No.
Right. So obviously, he would be like a couple of former prime ministers sitting in the gallery trying to run a government. So clearly, if he won, then boom, there's going to be an election. That would be my.
That'd be your guess.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, quite frankly, there needs to be an election just to set aside all the rhetoric and the HE double hockey sticks, if you will.
Okay, sure.
From Mr. Farwell's, whether it happens in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, well, you know what? We need we need a government in order to combat whatever's coming at us.
Okay.
And clearly, we don't know what's coming at us yet.
Right.
We probably never will. Quite frankly, the way.
And let me ask you, Dallas, when that election campaign starts and we get closer to voting day, what would be a big issue for you determining your vote?
Well, I don't know if I really have a big issue.
Okay.
I'm really concerned about our economy at the moment because, again, we don't know what's coming at us, but there's no control over that at this point. One of my biggest concerns right now would have to be affordability. I mentioned prior on your show a few months back, I'm sitting here a widower and 60 years old, and I'm running off of the wife's widower pension, and I'm working 40 hours a week trying to keep my head above the snow at the moment.
Yeah, right. So cost of living issues would be big, right?
Yeah,
cost of
pretty
living.
much.
Yeah, okay. All right, Dallas. Look, thank you for your call. The phone lines are jammed on this topic today, so I have to keep it short. Let's go to Afif is in Waterloo. Thanks for calling, Afif. Good to hear from you. What would you think if there was an election campaign really soon, like 2 weeks from now?
Well, okay. First, I voted for I voted this thing, and this thing I'm about I'm gonna vote on the 27th, and I'm thinking of Doug Ford because of his mandate and everything that he wants to do and he wants to stop all this issue with Trump. So I want somebody that basically helps us out for NDP Jagmeet Singh. He didn't even say anything what he'll do. He just said, "Oh, I'll help you guys." How though? They don't tell you exactly how. So that's what I want to know. Once I know that, then I can finally vote for somebody.
You want some specifics. You want specifics, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Rather than just hey, I just want to do this, and then I'm going to do this for you. That's it. Yeah.
Right. Do you think it's a good idea to have an election campaign right now?
Yeah, because I mean,
yeah, okay,
if they do it, like if they do it now or October, like it doesn't matter. Like at least they should have somebody running the country rather than just nobody.
Right. Okay. Oh,
you know what I mean? Like Mark Carney's there, but people didn't vote him in. So
well, the Liberals will have made him the prime minister if he wins the Liberal leadership. It will be only the Liberals, and nobody else will have had a say. Right. So,
that's the main problem. Like we won't have a say with that. Like that we made him prime minister. Only Liberals did.
Right. Right. And to the previous caller's point, he won't have a seat in the House of Commons. Maybe he should try to get one. Right.
Right. Exactly. There you go.
Okay. All right. Afif, thank you for your call. Good to hear from you as we are off and running on the Monday Talkback. Election politics is the theme for the day. What if the election campaign starts 2 weeks from today? It could start 2 weeks from today. What do you think of that idea? And what would be a big issue for you? What do you think of some of these candidates? Carney and Poilievre, Singh. 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on Now You Know on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What would you think if there was an election campaign in about 2 weeks from now? Do you like that idea or not? And what would be a big issue for you in that election campaign? Rick is in Dartmouth. Hello, Rick.
Hi, how you doing? First
I'm
of all,
good,
on
Rick.
the earlier
Thank you.
comment about Jagmeet, I'd like to see him and Trudeau in the ring together, just to see,
Okay,
you might remember Trudeau and the other guy. Anyway, but the most important thing is right now, I won an election 2 months ago. I mean, Trudeau is over there, giving money to Ukraine, another $5 billion. He's acting like he's still, top dog. I guess he is for another couple of weeks. So I would love to see an election as soon as possible. And my biggest issue would be what the Liberals have done over the past 9 years. Their entire
their record,
scandal-laden thing that they call the government. And I would, like I told you before, I was NDP all my life for 40 years. But right now, I would vote for Poilievre in a heartbeat.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Rick, for calling.
One last
Paul
thing.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Rick. Yeah. Is Rick still there? No? Okay. Let's go to Paul in Cambridge then. I think Paul's there. Hello, Paul.
I am here, and I'm not in the drive-through today.
Well, that's good, Paul. Okay, what would you think if there was an election campaign underway 2 weeks from now? What do you think of that
I'd
idea?
be running over to the liquor store to get a bottle of champagne to celebrate Canada's return to greatness and the demise of the Liberal Party.
All right. Well, you're very confident.
I need to correct you on something that you said earlier. You said that the members of the Liberal Party are going to be selecting the new Prime Minister. That's not exactly correct.
I said supporters of the Liberal Party. I said supporters of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, no, okay, supporters of the Liberal Party, the ones that have a membership that are entitled to vote, they aren't the ones that are selecting the next Prime Minister. It's the National Council that selects who the next Prime Minister is going to be. You can look at it and see what happens. They already had their candidate picked out, so they set the limits accordingly to block anybody else, from running. An exceptionally high buy-in, first off, to get in. Now, you got to realize that as part of your application to National Council to be allowed to run, you have to have a certain number of nomination forms signed from people all across Canada. It can't just be one person. It's got to be a lot. There's a pretty substantial number.
Right.
So they take those nominations, and at the first stage, there's so many and so much cost. Then at the next stage, you need more nomination forms and, of course, more money. And what the National Council does is they set the rules in order to eliminate those they don't like. Of course, explain to me how somebody can have a couple of thousand signed nomination forms and raise the money and turn that money over to the Liberal Party, and then National Council decides that they aren't allowed to run. So you've got
okay.
I think it's around
right.
20
So you think the
people
fix
in
was
National
in?
Council.
You think the fix was in for Ruby Dalla,
course-
somebody
of
like
course
Ruby
it
Dalla?
is.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
of course
okay.
it is.
Okay.
They did
All right.
that. They had already selected Carney. He's the one that they want. Now,
Right.
you don't hear too much about Freeland or Bayless or
Well,
anybody
it sounds
else.
like, from your perspective, it doesn't sound like there's anything to worry about because you think the Liberal era is coming to an end and that the Conservatives are going to win big if there's an election, right?
Well, there's no question about it.
No question about it. Well, we'll see. We'll see. That's why they. That's why they have the campaign, sir. Okay, gotta end it there. The latest breaking news is coming up next. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kicking around federal politics again today with an election politics theme. What would you think if there was an election campaign in as soon as 2 weeks from now? Do you like that idea or not? What would be a big issue for you in that election campaign? The Trump tariffs, who could best deal with Trump, or another issue? Cost of living, housing, healthcare, immigration, ethics and accountability. Just what would it be? And what do you think of some of the candidates? Names you keep hearing all the time: Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh. Join the discussion. Couple of lines available. 1-833-668-2577 as we go to Bill in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Hello, Bill.
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, Bill. Thank you. What's your opinion on the idea of an election campaign 2 weeks from now?
Well, we should have had one months ago, so we should have one as soon as possible. I just sit here and think anyone who could possibly support a liberal government that has done to our country what they have done for the past 10 years, it boggles my imagination. But having said that, the election should not be about Trump, because Trump, no one can deal with Trump. I don't know of anyone that can. What it should be about is who is going to position our country to the point where we can become what we should be. Canada is the second largest land mass on the planet, surrounded by 3 oceans, tons and tons of natural resources, and we have to start developing those. We have to start taking our place in the world, and we need a leader to do that. I don't think it's a Liberal Party. All I can say is I hope it's Poilievre. And I'll use an example. Mark Carney, who I think we all agree will be the next leader of the Liberal Party, anyone thinks he changed his stripes to being a non-environmentalist. Him and his wife are strong environmentalists, and they're not going to change. Now, that's not bad in and of itself, but we need to develop our resources. We need to take our place in the world, and I use the Energy East pipeline as an example. Well, we could never get it, but they're all saying they're going to build it now. Well, it's got to be built. I don't think we have many options, along with all of our other resources. So my point is, we should give a different government a chance. I don't think the NDP is relevant anymore, and I think the Liberals have done enough to destroy us. So I would suggest to you that our only hope right now is Pierre Poilievre.
Okay, sir. I appreciate your call. Thank you for calling today. And a few lines available there if you want to join the discussion. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Election speculation is our topic of the day. Michael in Cape Breton. Hello, Michael. You're on the air.
Yeah, after your last caller there, after 150 years, he got the disease this whole country got. There's something wrong with him between years. There's no difference between a Liberal and Tory. And the only loser will be the ordinary people. Until they smarten up, the issue is the heart of this nation, heart and soul of this nation, and the bread and butter issues that mean something for survival of everyday life in this country. And God love the steel workers in Hamilton for endorsing the only candidate, a fighter. Even Althea Ross agreed. He's so honest, Jagmeet Singh, and that's who I'm voting for, just to thank him for the few free things I do get for my taxpayer dollar. Thank you, Jagmeet, and I was out canvassing for you this morning, and I think I just went over the top. We're taking 2 seats off of Cape Breton Island.
Oh, really? Okay. So do you think there's going to be an election campaign 2 weeks from now? Like in as soon as 2 weeks from now?
Election campaign. They're playing the percentages like Vegas. I told you, just go watch that YouTube video, Canada Bought and Sold. They select their prime minister long before the people even vote. But go watch that YouTube video if you want an education. But anyway, it's for the heart and soul of this country, and I'm for the heart and soul, and I'm willing to fight. I want a fighter, and Jagmeet, that their ad is dead on.
Okay. All right. Good to hear from you, Michael. Staunch NDP supporter there, although the polls would suggest the NDP is bleeding support right now and losing support to the Liberals. The NDP down to about 15% in the polls. Look, I mean, we're working from a few assumptions here, and one of those assumptions might be that Mark Carney is going to, win this leadership of the Liberal Party. It's not a big leap. His campaign has raised the most money. It has the most support among the Liberal insiders, the caucus members, the MPs, and the members of the cabinet. And let's face it, the polls suggest that if Mark Carney is the leader of the Liberal Party, he would fare a lot better against the Conservatives in an election campaign than, say, Chrystia Freeland would. Chrystia Freeland doesn't really gain the Liberals very much. And certainly you would have to think Liberal supporters understand all of this. So, I mean, indications, they lean Mark Carney's way. So there's that assumption. And then, another assumption would be if he wins on March 9th and, he'll become the Prime Minister of Canada, that he's not going to want to wait very long before calling an election, that he wouldn't want to wait until March 24th, say, when the House of Commons is supposed to be back in action. The thinking is he would have momentum coming out of that leadership race. He'd be kind of in a honeymoon period. Some people think he's enjoying a honeymoon period right now. And others still say it's not a good look to be the Prime Minister, but not be able to say anything on the floor of the House of Commons because he doesn't have a seat. He'd have to look on from the gallery, and someone else with a seat would have to speak on his behalf. And another line of thinking is that he wouldn't want the Liberals to lose a confidence vote and be defeated, and see the Liberals go down to defeat in the election campaign, start without his say on a vote that he didn't get a say on. So he could avoid all of that by calling an election and kind of set things up on his own terms, if you will, and then let the chips fall where they may. That's one line of thinking that's out there, and it could all start to unfold in as soon as 2 weeks from now.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about federal politics, election politics is our theme. What would you think if we were in an election campaign, a federal election campaign, and as soon as 2 weeks from now? What do you think of that idea? You like that idea? You're not a big fan of that idea? What would be a big issue for you? Something that might sway your vote one way or the other. The economy, cost of living, all things having to do with Trump. Let's go to Rob is in Cambridge today. Hello, Rob.
Hey, hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Good to hear from you, Rob. Thank you.
Yes. Well, we might as well get elections all over with. What I would really like to, what I would like to hear is from people being concerned about what benefits. Like there's no word yet on what benefits would be kept or which ones would be eliminated, like with pensions or, with other diabetic medications that was promised if they'd be kept or not covered. So, like,
right.
That's the thing. Like, they're already ready to vote and cast before they even know the platforms yet. Like, that's the turnout I'd like to see as a bigger turnout for the elections. Really, I would like to see that. And it's it's up to the individual. But, like, yeah, I'd be ready. But, like, I'm hoping that whoever does get in will really, how can I say it, be really honest for what they can do and promise and be able to fulfill what they do, not just saying anything to sound good to get in, whether it's Mr. Carney or whether it's Miss Freeland. Like, the thing is, they both have economic sense and they've been trained well, so that's good. But I worry about one entering the field with no experience with politics. That's what I'm concerned with. Like, he's been involved with politics, I guess, with world leaders and stuff like that, but actually filling the shoes to lead.
Right. That Mark Carney hasn't been a politician before, but he's been around the game. Right.
He has. I guess we could say the same about when Justin Trudeau filled into the shoes. When he became first leader, he was raised up, correct, and he was. So the same could be for there. But we need to have platforms brought out before people making up their mind. Poilievre sounds very good, but I'm very concerned of what pension cuts could be done, and like certain benefits to seniors.
Right.
That would be. That's what I'm concerned with.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yep. Well said. Thank you, Rob. Yep. To Halifax, Nova Scotia. Donna up next. Hello, Donna.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Donna.
I'm all for Pierre Poilievre.
You are?
Mark Carney, I would never vote for him. I heard a few things lately that he was at some meeting with some bigwigs, whatever, world leaders, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, that he thinks Canada should have the population of 100 million by the turn of the century. I'll be dead by then anyway, but it won't matter to me. But there's been so many problems with the Liberals. Mark Carney has been advising Trudeau for the last 4 or 5 years, and look at the mess that Canada's in. That's my big thing. The economy is out of control. The human trafficking, the drugs, everything is out of control. And as I said, he wasn't advising Trudeau very well. And there should be an election as soon as possible. And I was really annoyed when Parliament was prorogued. Parliament should be there now for the people.
Okay. Well, I mean, if there's an election, in 2 weeks' time, there won't be an election probably for another 6 weeks from now, minimum, right? Maybe 7, maybe 8 weeks, maybe 2 months before the dust settles from all of this, right?
But we have to get Parliament back to discuss Trudeau's going to all the countries, giving away this, giving away that, doing this and doing that. We're going to be beyond bankrupt by the time he finishes. By the time he retires. But anyway.
Okay. Right. But you have a lot of concerns about Mark Carney, and you want an election, and you're hoping for the Conservatives. All well and good. Thank you, Donna, for calling from Halifax today. And we will stop here. Be right back.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, it's one of our favorite things to do around here. Speculate about the timing of the next election, and the latest speculation centers on what could happen. And as soon as 2 weeks from now, that we could be in an election campaign, and as soon as 2 weeks from now, what do you think of that idea? And if we are into an election campaign sometime soon, what would be a big issue for you? All things having to do with Trump, or would it be something else, let us know. Let's go to Barrie, Ontario. Derek. Hello, Derek.
Hi, Rob. It's good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you, Derek. Thank you. What would you think if an election started 2 weeks from now? 2 weeks would be in an election campaign.
Rob, we've needed an election yesterday. We've needed it, like another caller said, months ago. It's just it's gotten too much. I'd be celebrating as well if they just said we were going to have one tomorrow. But we desperately need one. My only concern, as some of the other callers have mentioned about different things that the Liberals are doing, is my concern is Mark Carney gets in and calls an emergency act. You know, he's mentioned it once already, where it's saying that this is justified because of what we're going through with the tariffs. And that, I don't know. I don't know how Canadians would handle that. Or what do we do if we just wait again and wait another couple months? I don't know. That has me pretty stressed out.
Okay. Now, if there is an election campaign in a couple of weeks from now, I mean, there are a lot of issues facing this country, the Trump tariff threat being the latest one. But what would be a big issue for you in an election campaign, something that might even determine how you vote?
Just the way that things have been going with the Liberals. Like, I feel that if we have the Liberals again for another while, we're just going to kind of be stuck with them. There's just so many other issues that keep popping up, more scandals. I understand that tariffs are a big deal, but there's so much hyper focus on that we're not looking at what's going on within Canada. You know, just the inflation rates, the mass immigration, which is slowly, well, they say it's starting to slow down, but it's just there's too many problems. And right now, I feel like they're just kind of putting a blanket over it. And hey, let's focus on the U.S. Let's duel it out. But I just don't think that's Canadian at all. We need to focus on the election, and we need to focus on having a leader that can bring Canada or make Canada what it used to be. And I just don't think that's going to happen under a Liberal Party.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you, Derek. Good to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Eric in Cole Harbour for the last call for the first hour of Talkback. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Rob. What a beautiful day it is here in good old Nova Scotia, buddy.
Oh, that's good.
Like
that's
a real
good.
spring day.
Oh,
anyway,
good,
I don't know what it's like in the nation's capital. It's okay?
It's snowing,
anyway,
actually. Yeah.
Well, I can't help but laugh at that. Anyways, I personally feel that if we value personal freedoms, I believe that Poilievre and the Conservatives are actually classic liberals, and I am by nature a classic liberal, and I really don't like the woke policies of the Liberals for the last 8 or 9 years that we've had Trudeau Jr. in there. And I think, in my own way of thinking, in my own research, Carney's too involved with the WEF. And I'm not trying to get away from the topic, but if people would really study his background, what he stands for, I think the Conservatives, Canada would be much better off having a Conservative government. If you value freedom of speech, freedom of movement, you know, and all the things a classic liberal, right to own a business, right to travel, and all those things, Rob, that's how I sincerely...
So would you be happy if there was an election campaign, say 2 weeks from now? The election campaign got under, like, really soon?
Yes, personally, I would be. I
you
think
would be,
that
yeah, okay.
If it's subjected to the liberal propaganda and then people, some of the things I've heard the callers say, I respect everybody's right to have opinion, but when I hear Krista Freeland has economic sense and Mark Carney has economic sense, no, I don't think so. But anyways, it's just my opinion.
Good enough. Eric, good to hear from you today.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talk Back. Kicking around federal politics today to start the week. Election speculation, election politics, the theme. What would you think if we were into an election campaign, if an election campaign started 2 weeks from now? What do you think of that idea? What would be a big issue for you in the upcoming election campaign? What do you think of some of the names that keep coming up? Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh. Join the discussion, will you? 1-833-668-2577. And right back to the phones. Barb is on the line from Halifax. Hello, Barb.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, Barb. Thank you. Hi.
Good. I'm a first-time caller.
I appreciate that.
I listen to your show all the time. I love it.
Great. Thank you.
I learn a lot. And then I get a lot of opinions from, listen to the opinions of others, and I think it's great. I'm not a big political person. I don't really follow. Haven't followed it all my life, but now that I'm retired, I think one thing, we need to have an election now as soon as possible. We need a leader for this country. We need somebody who can pull us through the next 4 years and get Canada back on track, being the country that it should be. And my big issue as a retired senior is taxing our seniors on their old age pensions or anything that we get when we turn 65. I think it's a shame that our seniors live in the manner that they live, and I don't really hear anyone out there with a big voice actively trying to do things for our seniors.
Okay, so seniors issues, pensions, cost of living, those kinds of things, right? Taxation. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very interesting. Now, do you have somebody in mind? Is there some, are you leaning one way or the other or the other or the other or the other?
Well, I'm not, I did vote for Trudeau, and I'm sorry to say that, that I'm sorry that he went off the rails with the power to his head, if that's what, what went on. I am kind of leaning towards Chrystia Freeland, only because I'm looking at, Poilievre, I'm looking at Judd Mead, and I love Judd Mead. I wish the party was strong enough, to lead Canada.
Right,
but,
right.
I haven't heard enough from Poilievre. I call him polyester, but I haven't heard much from him that gives me confidence that he can do something to bring up, lead us forward through the next 4 years.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Very interesting. Thank you. I've never heard him called that before, by the way, polyester. I've heard his name pronounced many, many different ways, but never that way. Okay. Thank you, Barb. It sounds like the NDP thinks an election campaign is just weeks away. They're out there. They have a new ad. We're going to play it for you again. It shows, really tough looking Jagmeet Singh, and he's in the boxing ring. And the NDP is going to spend $500,000 promoting this ad. Here's that ad again.
I wasn't raised to be a politician. Never dreamed of becoming one. I worked for minimum wage to take care of my family when my dad was sick, and made it out of law school to see the system only works for those at the top. So I got in the ring to take on the powerful few and fight for you. It's time for someone in your corner, especially when times are tough. I won't back down. I won't stop fighting for you. I'm ready.
Okay, that's the new NDP ad. $500,000 is a lot of money for the NDP to spend on an ad. Okay, the NDP raised just $6 million all of last year. So spending on one 30-second commercial, $500,000, like spending 8% of all the money that the NDP raised last year. So that's kind of a big deal. That may be the clearest signal yet that the NDP thinks there's going to be an election, and soon. What would you think if there was going to be an election soon, like 2 weeks from now? The election campaign begins. Chris in Martins Point, Nova Scotia. Hello, Chris.
Good afternoon, Rob. How's life treating you?
Everything is fine here, Chris. Thank you for calling, sir. What would you think if the election campaign started in as soon as 2 weeks?
Well, to tell you the truth, Rob, I'd be absolutely disgusted. We just had a snap election here in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
And the backlash that we're getting from this now, well, you can see it with the way Timbit is consolidating his power, wants to wants to take on the civil servants, the same as Donald Trump's doing down south. He's taken a page right out of his playbook. These snap elections, they tend to be lopsided affairs. And the problem right now, the way I see it in this country, is we don't need an election which is going to cost us a lot of money and nothing's going to change. What we need political reform. We need it in the worst possible way. I look at politicians like ill-behaved little toddlers. Their behavior, unless there's deterrent, unless there's some kind of deterrent or some kind of consequence for their actions, they will never stop. And right now, this is becoming more glaringly evident. By the way, not just it's at all levels of government. It's municipal, it's federal, it's provincial. They're out of control. Well, no, actually, they're in control, and that's the problem. Is how can I put this? Once they consolidate their power, like Timbit has in Nova Scotia, with an overwhelming majority, they're pretty much free for the next 4 years to do what they want to do without consequence. We don't have enough checks and balances, and
okay. So you would you want something like electoral reform, like an end of first past the post or something like that, right?
Well,
that's
just a start. What I'm trying to say, Rob, is more to the point. We need accountability in government. We don't have that right now. You look at the scandals, the breaches of ethics, and everything else that our prime minister has done over how many years? It's just one scandal after another. They wipe their noses with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and there's no mechanism in there to hold them accountable. Is what I'm saying. An election. And they're all the same. It's not just I'm apolitical.
You don't think an election will change much, is what you're saying?
It's not. It's all it's going to change is who's got their finger on the treasury. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to change my life any.
Okay. All right, Chris. Thank you. Kind of doomy gloomy there on holding an election and when it comes to government overall.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What would you think if the election campaign started 2 weeks from now? Dale in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Dale. Hi, Dale. Hello, Dale.
Hello?
Hi, Dale. Good to hear from you.
It's Guy.
Oh, it's Guy. Okay. All right, Guy. You're up, buddy. Thanks for calling.
Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. They should call an election right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
why do you think that?
We just need a change for sure. Yes. And I would actually like for some of the people that voted Liberal to explain to me what have they done that's benefit this country in the last since 2015. To me, everything has gone wrong since they got into power.
Okay.
Yeah. So if someone could help me out and explain why they would even vote that way, again, that would help me and probably some other listeners, because I have no idea how anybody could actually vote Liberal in the next election.
Right. So for you, I mean, the election campaign is an opportunity to cast judgment on the Liberal record since 2015. Is that you're viewing it?
Absolutely. I'm getting to the age where I'm getting close to be retirement, but I got grandkids, and I'm more thinking of my grandkids than myself.
Okay.
Because,
right.
If the country keeps going the way it's been going, it's not going to be a really nice country for the younger generations, right?
Right. Well, Mark Carney, let's say Mark Carney wins, he's going to try and say, I think, I wasn't there for any of that. And I'm not Justin Trudeau. And I'm not going to continue with some of Justin Trudeau's policies. And if you want change, I'm change. But could you be convinced of something like that?
Not a chance. I wouldn't believe.
Okay, I tried. Okay, no,
I wouldn't believe that.
Okay,
and I mean, like I agree with a lot of the callers that we need to hear more of the platforms and like I guess not the Liberal platform. I don't really care about, but like more Pierre, what he's going to do, and I kind of have a good idea what he's going to do. But can it get any worse?
Okay, all right, interesting. Thank you, Guy, for hanging in there. Really appreciate it. Let's go. Let's try Dale again. Let's see if Dale is there. Hello, Dale. Is Dale there?
No, sorry, Dale is not there.
He's not
Kevin
there. Okay, all right, Kevin. Okay. We were starting to wonder if anybody was going to call from Calgary or Alberta. I guess the weather's turned really nice there. Maybe a lot of people are out in shorts and T-shirts and drinking beers on patios instead of calling talk shows. Let's go to Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that election. We're hoping to see something come up here in the next couple of weeks. I would be thrilled to see something come up here. But what I wanted to say was I really hope we can kind of mirror what the U.S. is doing with this DOJ investigation. Yeah, I really believe there's a lot of corruption throughout the world governments. They're not working for the people. There's so many, sleight of hands and redacted information that doesn't come through to the public, and a lot of money is being spent. And the Liberals have been accounted for a number of, a lot of spending, a lot of money that's gone out of Canada that hasn't been accounted for. And we need to kind of copy what the States is doing. We need a full investigation on what Trudeau was spent and why and what we're getting back for that. We have a lot of homeless people. We have a lot of things that we need to fix in Canada, and it's just not being dealt with by the Liberal government. So I'd be great to see an election and hopefully a Conservative government.
A Conservative government that does a total investigation of all government spending, like a Department of Government Efficiency, like they have in the United States. This Elon Musk thing.
Yeah, put it on the table. Let us see what we're spending our money on and why.
Okay.
Let the people speak for that money. And don't just let the bureaucrats and the governments just kind of free this money out to whoever they think deserves it without getting some kind of ROI for our money. That money is going away, and the taxpayers are just, it costs a lot to live in this country, as everybody knows. So we need some accountability for that, and I believe the Conservative government, Pierre Poilievre, would be the guy to be able to handle that. The NDP, they are just nothing but liars. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. And same with the Liberals. They're in the same camp together. And the Conservatives seem to be the only guys that really answer questions. So that's just my opinion. Yeah.
Got you, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you for your call. Got to run. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on a Monday. Election speculation is our theme.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Been talking today about the timing of the next election and asking what you would think if the federal election campaign started in as soon as 2 weeks. What do you think of that idea? What would be a big issue for you? How about Dan? Let's try Dan in Calgary. Hello, Dan.
Hey, Rob. Thanks again for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have the election as soon as possible. Back in the fall, I was hoping that everything was going to crumble and they were going to have the election then because probably for different reasons. But if Pierre, I'm interested in Pierre, but I don't fully know what he stands for. And that concerns me. So I would rather him be in power with a minority government. so that we can kind of see what he has to say and what he can do, but without full reins of the power. So when all this happened with the Liberals in December, I really felt bad because that really meant that Pierre would have likely gotten a majority. Now, with the resurgence with Carney, I'm kind of hoping that will put it back into a minority conservative government. And that, frankly, I think will be good. And then we can see what Pierre stands for, because I know there's a lot of rhetoric and he has a lot of sarcasm in the House when he stands up. I love it, but I want some substance behind that. I want to see what he stands for, and I want to see really what he's going to do for us.
Okay, that's very interesting. What would be a big issue for you?
Employment. I know, in general, it's the economy, but I can see that even Calgary, I think the last poll was like number 3 in top unemployment right now in the country, and
right.
It's really concerning. And obviously it's a bit of a ripple effect across the country with everything that's happening. But I just think that unemployment is going to be really big with the tariffs and everything that are likely going to come in, and it's just going to get worse. So, I'm hoping we don't get a recession, and I'll say it, I hope we don't have a depression, like the 20s. So, yeah.
Well, me either. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's try to avoid a depression. I'm all for that. How about John? Let's try John in Waterloo up next. Hi, John.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, John. So let's say the election campaign starts 2 weeks from today. What would you think of that?
I'd be ecstatic. We've needed an election for far too long.
Okay.
I'd be ecstatic, yeah.
Okay. And what would be a big issue for you?
I think all of it's a big issue for me. Our economy right now is really not where it needs to be. People are, embarrassed by Canada and our world stage. We just don't have good leadership. I haven't liked Trudeau for a long, long time. I did like him in 2015 because of some of the policies that he had planned then. But ever since then, I haven't stood for anything that he's had on the plate. That includes the benefits for COVID. I feel that caused us more of a problem than it was worth doing at the time. While it did save a few people, it really put a lot of people behind.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. So, you hear all of these names out there, Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, Poilievre, Singh. I mean, what way are you leaning?
I'm a big Poilievre fan.
You're a big Poilievre fan. Okay. Yeah. All right. And why is that?
I've liked him ever since 2022.
Oh, really? And what is it about him?
I believe he's got a backbone, which I believe Trudeau and Jagmeet don't really have. Carney, I don't trust him. And Christina Freeland, we've already seen what she's all about, so we don't need her.
All right. Fair enough.
Right.
Thank you. Good
you, Rob.
to hear
Take
from
care.
you today. Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, fueling a lot of this speculation, some of it is Mark Carney and what he has said. I mean, for example, you remember kind of unofficially launched his campaign on The Daily Show, right? And if you listen closely, I think even back then, which is like more than a month ago now, he was dropping hints that I'd probably call the election myself. Let's roll the tape on that, Dave.
Trudeau has resigned.
Yes.
There will be new elections. Do you know when the new elections are?
They have to be by October.
Okay.
They could come sooner.
Sooner than October?
Sooner than October, yes.
Now, what would be the trigger of the election sooner?
Well, it would be likely the choice of the current governing party, which is the Liberal Party.
And you are of the Liberal Party?
I am of the Liberal Party, yes.
So did he kind of let the cat out of the bag there? I mean, you hear him there. He's asked by Stuart, what would trigger an election? And again, this is more than a month ago. And he answered by saying, well, it would likely be the choice of the current governing party, which is the Liberal Party. Let's listen to a kind of a shortened version of that.
What would be the trigger of the election sooner?
Well, it would be likely the choice of the current governing party, which is the Liberal Party.
So maybe he's been dropping hints all along that if he wins the leadership, he wants to see an election called right away. Let's go to Mark in, is it Kincardine? Are you in Kincardine? Sorry, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Rob. I'm a red Tory, blue liberal type of guy, right? And I haven't really had a liking of the Conservative Party or the Liberal Party, because the Conservatives, I feel, have drifted too far to the right, and the Liberals have drifted too far to the left. In the past elections, I have voted Green, because I didn't. It was a place where I could park my vote. What I see the problem with Poilievre, right? We have some serious problems right now, and the sloganeering that he's doing. And I'm a member of the Conservative Party, to believe it or not, both provincially and federally. What I see a problem with him is the sloganeering. We've got some really, really tough problems in Canada. We have the economy, the affordability issue. We have the immigration issue. We have the Trump tariff threats. We have affordability. We have a whole bunch of very, very serious problems, and he can't solve them by slogans. On the other hand, with Mr. Carney, I hope to get a better understanding tonight on the debate, because basically he was the quote-unquote liberal economy advisor. And to him to say I wasn't involved, I'm sorry, you were. And Mr. Carney has only showed what he said he's going to make the economy strong. But what about our military? What about our foreign our status on the world stage? How are you going to deal with the Trump threats? Are you going to punch the Trump bully in the nose with hard retaliatory tariffs, or are you just going to be a banker? And I don't think Mr. Carney has the skill set to do the job as prime minister. He may be a good
sound like
banker,
you're kind of politically orphaned right now. You're kind of politically orphaned right now. You're looking
Yes,
for...
I am, because basically, Rob, I think we need to get rid of the academics, the activists, and we got to start putting real people back into government who have actual leadership capabilities.
All right,
None
fair
of
enough.
these
I got to
people
run.
do.
Okay, fair enough. Not impressed with really any of the choices.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Federal politics is what we've been talking about today. Election speculation. With speculation, there could be an election campaign starting in as soon as 2 weeks from now. Asking you about your thoughts on that idea, what some of the big issues might be for you. Jonathan is in Calgary. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for taking my call.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You. My big concern in this election is number one is the economy and the productivity of the country. Yeah, because when we have a solid and stable economy, everything will become easier. And regarding the in this election, it's kind of, for me, it's going to be a tougher election because when I vote, I base my my reasons on putting to the best candidate who's running, and this time is this time is kind of difficult because.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because one, for example, the qualifications. This is just my opinion. I think the educational background, experience, and when it comes to economic aspects, is Mr. Carney.
Okay.
But the thing is, he is on the Liberal Party, which is, as we all know, drags us, all of us, to this situation right now.
Right.
And Poilievre, the Conservative, if this is only between Poilievre and Chrystia Freeland, the election would be easy. I go for Poilievre right away. But this one is going to be difficult.
It's more difficult if it's Carney for you.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Because,
that's interesting.
Because and to me, there are only two ways I'm going to look at this election. Is either I base my vote based on the party or based on the leader of the party, the qualification of the leader. So it's kind of difficult. And for me, I guess I have to wait and see how they're going on the debate. Because Carney also is an environmentalist, and I don't know how radical he is. And I hope he's gonna be not that radical as the previous liberals, but we'll see. It's difficult, Rob. Yeah.
All right. It's a difficult choice for you, especially if it's Carney leading the Liberal Party, and that's what a lot of Canadians are telling pollsters, that exact same thing. That the race tightens. It's more or less the status quo. If say Chrystia Freeland is the leader of the Liberal Party, then it's a big Conservative majority government. If it's Mark Carney, well, the race is a lot tighter. Tom is in Cambridge. Hello, Tom.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. Hi. What do you think about being in an election campaign in 2 weeks from now?
Okay, my main concern is that people have blamed the Liberals and Trudeau for everything, but the number one guy you got to beg is the NDP, Singh. He destroyed the party. He supported the Liberals. I hope they get wiped out because it was a party for the people. They had all the unions and everything, and they got nobody now. Because this guy destroyed it totally. So, and the main concern is going to be how you're going to fight the economics with Trump. And none of this stuff is about the fees or anything. He wants to destroy the country. And these idiots keep going there, and they look like fools. So.
Okay. All right. So you take the Trump threat seriously. You think that's the biggest issue?
All these idiots that don't take it and people that don't ask for it, this is very serious, even Trudeau said. But the other thing, you got to get rid of 5 million immigrants that are illegal in the country. You got to get them out. You got to be tough. None of this.
Okay, tough on immigration. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. But not a big fan of the NDP there by the sounds of things. Tom in Cambridge, thank you for your call. And in fact, again, circling back to some of these polls, that if there is Liberal momentum, it would be coming at the expense of Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats. In tough right now.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What would you think if the election campaign started in 2 weeks' time? What would you think of that idea? What would be a big issue for you? Let's go to, who do we have? Debbie in Calgary. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Debbie. I'm good. Thank you, Debbie. What do you think?
My concern is if there isn't an election in a couple of weeks, how much money are the Liberals going to spend trying to buy votes?
Okay.
And I'm curious about something. I'd like to know who these pollsters are talking to, because I would say 95% of the people that call into your show, and I listen to it pretty much every day, are not voting for the Liberals.
Doesn't sound that way, no. But again, it's a radio call-in show. It's not a poll, right? So. Well,
that's true, but I mean, where are they getting that info? Just from Quebec? I don't know. It just seems suspect to me that.
Okay.
What they're telling us.
Right. So would you like an election campaign to begin soon then?
Absolutely.
Like you would?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd be happy.
Yeah.
You'd be happy. And it doesn't sound like you're a fan of the Liberals by any measure.
I was.
You were?
But no, I can't do
Not
that.
anymore.
I can't support them anymore.
I can't do
Too much spending.
Okay. All right. Too much spending. Okay. Interesting. And what would be a big issue for you in the election campaign? Something that would determine your vote? Would it just be the Liberal record, or would it be something specific, or?
No, probably not anything specific. It just needs to change. And
you want change.
I am a retiree, and one person brought up about having to pay income tax on our money again, and we paid income tax on that money. It's been put aside for us, and now we're paying again, and we can't afford it. So that would be nice to hear something like that, but that wouldn't be a make or break for me if it's not an issue.
All right. Thank you for your call. Yeah, good to hear from you today. Yeah. And thank you for all your calls today. Really great discussion. I mean, just on the polls, it's been an interesting time to be watching the polls, that's for sure. They have narrowed overall, according to 338. It's not a 20-point lead for the Conservatives anymore. Those times are over. It's more like a 10-point lead. That's when you average out the results of all the polls. A 10-point lead still for the Conservatives. And still hanging in there with, 41% support. Pretty strong for the Conservatives. The resignation of Trudeau, the Trump stuff, the leadership race. It's given a bounce to the Liberals for sure, up to 31%. It hasn't been good for the New Democrats. Support for the New Democrats down to 14%. 338 says, based on the polls of today, the Conservatives are on track to win a majority government. Just wouldn't be a landslide. It'd be something like 177 seats. A majority government in the upcoming election takes 172. You have to win 172 ridings. So way things stand right now, and things could always change. Conservatives would win a majority. Liberals would be the official opposition. Bloc would come in third. NDP fourth. And in fact, might even be at risk of losing official party status. That is how bleak things are for them right now. Love the conversation today. We'll do it again tomorrow. New topics and more of your calls. I'm Rob Snow. The latest breaking news is coming up next. Thank you for listening. This is News Radio.